The Sports Town Podcast.
All right, I'm pleased to be joined by the two hosts of the Drive and Kick podcast, Mike Clemmons and Dan Lybbert. How's it going, guys?
It's good, man. Can't complain. Just been enjoying these NBA playoffs and working, man.
Likewise, bro. I'm doing well. Just hanging in there, ready for summer to start.
Yep. Again, thanks for coming on, guys. It's been a pretty fun NBA playoffs. I'm a little surprised with how quickly the Bucks took down the Heat. What did you guys think about that series?
Yeah, Roy, it was definitely a little surprising just considering the run the Heat had in last year in the bubble. But I think when you watch the game, it's clear that this Bucks team is a way better team than we've ever seen Giannis have. Giannis is the best that he's ever been. And on the flip side, the Heat don't have the playmaking on their side that they had last year. I think Tyler Hero really came on the scene last year, and that really helped, but he's had a bit of a sophomore slump. I think them losing Victor Oladipo, I think the way that they play down the stretch through Jimmy Butler, who kind of refuses to shoot the ball for the first 3 quarters of the game, really hurts them. So I think watching the game, it makes sense, but just watching it from afar, it would be easy to be surprised.
Yeah, I would have to echo that. I just think it was a bad matchup for the Heat. The Bucks are definitely an improved team, but when I look at all the injuries Miami suffered throughout the season, and then I look at the quick turnaround from last year, and then, you know, they're playing Tyler Hero at the point guard position earlier in the year. Jimmy gets hurt. You know, just a lot of things that were going on. There was not a lot of stability, and like Dan said, they didn't have a lot of playmaking and not a lot of shooting, to be honest with you, even though they're a 3-point shooting team. So I'm a Miami fan, and I called it in 6. I didn't think they would get swept, but I'm not surprised.
Do you think that, I know it was early, this is back early in the season, the Heat were thinking about trading for James Harden. Do you think they should have made that move earlier in the year?
I think that they definitely look silly now for not doing it, but I understand them not wanting to give up a long-term piece in Tyler Hero. So it's a little bit of give and take. It just depends what their goals are. Obviously, if they felt like they were a championship team this year, then yeah, they look kind of stupid for not having done it. But it seems like they're playing the long-term game and they're very strategic in what they do. So I hope that this kind of woke them up as to what they're really lacking, which is a very dynamic playmaking guard.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I just think that they're actually doing a rebuild complete from the beginning, and I think Jimmy opting to go there in free agency sped them along, because you look at Bam and Tyler, they're kind of in the same age range, and then the rest of the supporting cast that are younger are all the same age, and I think they didn't really want to take on or give up the young pieces for James to try to win a championship now when there's, you know, Brooklyn is really good and the Clippers are really good. I just feel like they understood that their timeline isn't right now.
Speaking of the Clippers, and it seems like they got everything situated, and it looks like they're going to end up beating the Mavericks, I think. Now, at the time of this recording, it was Monday. So do you think if the Clippers do end up getting bounced out of the playoffs, do you think there's a chance that Kawhi Leonard goes to the Heat? Because there is, I think I was talking with someone last week, and he mentioned, I think it was Chris from Sports Talk with Chris. He talked about how he thinks there's a chance that Kawhi could join the Heat next or this offseason. Do you think there's a chance of that if the Clippers don't make it to the finals this year?
I'm not sure about him going anywhere. I'm not sure that I can really pinpoint a team for him to go to. I think the Heat would make sense, but it's tough for me to see Kawhi leaving. I feel like he's turned into more of a diva than we first expected him to be, or than we first kind of looked at him when he was with the Spurs. But overall, it's tough for me to see him wanting to leave, because he chose to go to LA, you know, to the Clippers over the Lakers, because he wanted to have his own team, and also he wants to be home. And I think that's kind of a big thing for Kawhi. So I'm not sure that I see him leaving, but I definitely see some big changes happening in the Clippers organization.
Yeah, I think if the Clippers lose, I think Miami's a dark horse. I just think he's a California kid that likes living in California. I would say Golden State probably has a better chance than Miami, in my opinion. And I don't know how much the Clippers would, just jump ship on their current roster. But I do think they would have to make some significant changes if they at least didn't make the conference final.
And let's go to the series with the Mavericks and Clippers. Now, I mentioned recently that this right now the series is tied 2-2. Do you think the Clippers can win the next two games and then win another home game? Because it seems like I think both teams have won the road games and no one has won the home game. Do you guys think that the Clippers can just win easily Game 5 and Game 6?
I think that Game 4 told us a lot about how they have responded to being punched in the mouth in Games 1 and 2. I think Luka looking like he's hurt is a big factor. But honestly, for me personally, I felt like the whole series would go the way Game 4 did. So if the Clippers can stay this locked in for two more games, then I don't see the Mavericks winning another game. But it all depends on how the Clippers come out, because it seems like whether they come out flat, whether they come out lazy, what their game plan is, I think that dictates how the Mavericks do more than the Mavericks having a great game. Obviously, Luka played out of his mind and stuff the first two games, but I really think that that's containable with the roster that the Clippers have, the way it's built. They're built to be a very good defensive team and to contain one-man storms like that, especially when he's making easy reads the whole game. So I think if they stay locked in the way they were in Game 4 specifically, they easily should win the next two games.
Yeah, I think it's over for the Mavericks. I think the Clippers are going to win 4 straight and move on to the second round. And yeah, Luka's hurt, and I know that's taking a toll on his ability to play make. But the Mavericks just aren't making as many of those threes they were making before. Like the first 3 games or the first 2 games, they're the other guys besides Luka, Kleba, Jalen Brunson, Tim Hardaway, those guys are hitting everything they throw up, right? They're averaging 18, 19 threes a game. And then when you hold them below, that 15 mark, threes for the game, they're not, they're getting blown out. And I just don't think Luka has enough help, honestly. Porzingis is not a second option. So I think they're going to win 4 straight and then move on to the next round.
Well, we saw in Game 3 and 4, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George played out of their mind, and I think I was impressed with that. But I think at the same time, it just also goes to show you that the Mavericks need to give Luka some help. And during the offseason, Mark Cuban needs to go out and just pay someone in free agency, because Luka is pretty much doing what I'm seeing is Luka's pretty much doing everything. And as you mentioned, Porzingis is just not the type of guy. They need to find another guy to help out Luka. But Luka's been pretty impressive despite, what's happened with him and stuff like that, with him trying to do everything. So let's go to another series. Let's start with the Nuggets and Blazers. That series is very interesting. What do you guys think about that? And do you think, or who do you guys have winning that series?
This is a bit of a biased opinion because they are my favorite team, but I have the Blazers winning the next 2 games and winning the series in 6. I think Portland showed a lot in Game 4. Just the fact that they were able to win with, I think the stat was it was their first win in 3 or 4 years, or even more, with Damian Lillard having 10 points or less. The way that the supporting cast stepped up to really, on both sides of the ball too, is what's really impressive. But I think it's going to come down to the production of the guys that aren't Dame and Jokic. And I think Portland has the edge on paper. So if they come as locked in the next 2 games, then it honestly should be no issue. But there has been a lot of inconsistency as far as Melo and Anthony Simons and even Cantor's production. Like in Game 4, they played Rondae Hollis-Jefferson as the backup center, and it was good as far as defensive matchups, but the rebounding production was definitely down. And I'm not sure that we can hold Jokic to such a non-MVP-like game for 3 straight games. So that's maybe the Blazers' kryptonite. But I still think that if everything plays out the way any basketball fan expects it to, I think that the Blazers win the next 2 games and move on to round 2.
I'm conflicted because I like the Blazers team, but I also like the Nuggets. And I don't trust the Blazers. I do think they can win the series. I don't think the Nuggets supporting cast around Jokic is enough to propel them to 2 more wins, but I do think they can get 1 more, especially in Denver. So I think Denver wins the next one, and then Portland wins the next 2, and they win in 7.
Yeah, you were mentioning the supporting cast for Denver, and I think without Jamal Murray, that's a big loss for the Nuggets. And I mean, I think that I think I originally had the Nuggets winning that series, but I wouldn't be surprised if Portland did, because I do believe Damian Lillard is the best point guard in the league, and I think he's one of the most underrated players. And it seems like he's people always kind of want to forget about him, but I feel like when Dame Lillard is on, it's going to be hard for any team to stop him, because, again, I think he's the best point guard in the league. Let's go back to the Eastern Conference real quick. I forgot to mention the Brooklyn and Boston. It seems like that series is over. Brooklyn's dominating. What have you guys taken away from there? And do you think there's a shot Boston can win one more game?
Yeah, man. I think Boston's going to need another incredible performance from Jason Tatum. It's really unfortunate for them that they lost Jaylen Brown. I think that is extra firepower that they're obviously very much lacking. But what I'm taking away is that this Milwaukee series is going to be so interesting because Brooklyn refuses to play defense. I'm not sure if it's out of laziness. Like, we know that they're capable defenders, all 8 of them that get minutes, but they just really don't need to. They put up 140. Harden, Kyrie, and KD put up 104 of those 140. It's just going to be, as far as this series, I think it's over by next game. I think these guys are finally getting it going, and they're incredibly hard to stop on back-to-back possessions, and that's kind of the biggest thing for Boston. They're outmanned on offense, and they can't get a stop on defense. So I think that series is over, and I just think that what I've learned so far is that the series against Milwaukee is going to be a lot more interesting than we think, because I think Milwaukee matches up against them on both sides of the ball better than anyone in the league.
Yeah, I agree with what Dan said about the matchup portion in the next round. I've been saying it before the playoffs started that I think Milwaukee has a better chance to beat them than Philly does, just because I think Milwaukee has more offense. But what I've learned from this series is, one, that Jason Tatum is better than I originally thought, and he has carried them in that play-in game and the one game they won in this series. That he's special, and they got to figure out something in Boston this offseason. I think there's going to be major turnaround this offseason in Boston. And on the Brooklyn side of things, one thing, I'm not worried about the defense, because you just need to get stops when they matter. And when you shoot as much as they do, you're going to give up points on the other end, right? You can give up 120 if you score 140. But I'm realizing that there's times throughout the games where they go to strictly ISO ball and there's zero player movement. It's one person dribble, and he gives it a real late shot clock. And I think you cannot – I don't know if they can beat Milwaukee doing that. I think that they have the capability to, but that's one thing that really, really worries me, because Milwaukee's going to score just as much as them, and they're going to have to make Milwaukee work. And if they try to ISO them, I just don't think that's in their favor. But it remains to be seen.
I think Brooklyn is the most talented team in the league right now, and I still have them right now winning it all. But it seems like on the other side, Boston, it seems like they need to, as you mentioned, they need to give Jason Tatum some help. But it was crazy to know it's just a few years ago they were so close to, or at least going to the finals. And you mentioned there's probably going to be a major turnaround in the offseason. Do you think there's a chance that Brad Stevens, I don't think he's going to lose his job, but do you guys think he'll still be with Boston after this season?
Tough to say. I think with the influx of talent that he's had come in and come out in the last few years, and to not have it have really amounted to anything, talking about guys like Kemba, Gordon Hayward, despite the injuries, they still have Tatum and Brown. I think Danny Ainge keeps making really good moves to put them in a position that should be good, and I just think that they're not putting it together. So I'm not sure if it's blow everything up and build around JT, or if it's a change at the coaching position. I think one of the two is coming, because the thing is, they're gonna have to make a decision whether they can afford to pay Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum as well. So it's going to be a tough decision for them for sure.
I don't think he's on a hot seat yet. I think, especially because there was injuries this season, and they don't have a true big man, and Kemba's been hurt. I think next year they're going to make a bunch of moves this offseason, and then after next season, if it doesn't go as expected, I think then they're going to start to really look at making a coaching change. one thing about their superstars in Boston is they have two very, very elite wings that are two-way players, but they don't make the people around them better. So you have to have very specific pieces around them, right? It's not like you're playing with it's similar to Kawhi and Paul George, two really good wings offensively and defensively, but they don't make people around them better. They need the Rondo, right? They need other guys that can do that for them. So it'd be very interesting, but I think Danny's getting close to the hot seat. He's not there yet, but he's teetering. He's teetering.
Do you think Boston should do something in free agency this year, like get a major start? Because it seems like they're always in the hunt for someone. I feel like they were in the hunt for Kawhi. They were in the hunt for LeBron. They were in the hunt for Anthony Davis. It feels like every year they're in the hunt for someone. Do you think they should get a major free agent this year? Because I guess, yeah, Kawhi is a free agent if he opts out. But what do you guys think they should do in the offseason?
Tough to say. Just like Mike said, Tatum and Brown, whether they decide to re-sign Brown or not, is probably what will decide if they go after a big free agent. It's tough because, like Mike said, they don't make guys around them better. I think the Evan Fournier trade was a great trade as far as he's a great third or fourth fiddle type guy that doesn't need to be fed the ball to really get his. I think that's the type of guys that they need to build, that they need to bring around either Tatum or Tatum and Brown. It's tough to say because their three best players are all ball dominant guys who don't create for others. And I think that, just like Mike said, I'm just reiterating everything he said, that's not going to work as far as with the complementary pieces that they have right now. So I think that's what they need to focus on, is the complementary pieces. But it's tough to say because I feel like Danny Ainge is a very business first type of guy, and he's really proved that. So it's very possible that he makes some type of a big splash where it feels like they're going to try and win now, but that's proven unsuccessful the last couple of years with the Kemba, the Kyrie, all that stuff. So I feel like it's very 50-50. It just kind of depends how Danny Ainge is feeling this offseason.
Yeah, I think their two biggest needs are, well, I think Kemba's out of there, and I really love Kemba. He's one of my favorite players, but I think he's gone just because his injury history just hasn't panned out. I think they need a point guard. I think they should go either really, really veteran at the point guard, like a Kyle Lowry, or really, really young to match the timeline up with the two superstar wings, and then get a vet big like an Andre Drummond or whatever, because they just need an inside presence where they're not getting destroyed on the glass. That's the biggest problem. And Robert Williams is serviceable. He's a good shot blocker, but he's not a rebounding big, right? Like they need someone who's big and plays big. So I think they need a point guard, and I think they need a big center and a little bit of depth. I don't know if they keep Marcus Smart, or I'm not sure what they're going to do, but they need some depth too, because I don't really know who comes off the bench and gives them real production on the offensive end.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a wild offseason, especially for Boston. Let's go on to another series in the East before we jump back into the West. The Knicks and Hawks, that's gotten a little interesting. Trae Young has been great. What do you guys have thought about that series, and how impressed are you guys with Trae Young?
I've been one of the guys from the very beginning, been very advocating for Trae Young, saying that he's the best player in the series. A lot of people thought that the Knicks experience with D Rose and Coach Tibbs would be kind of the tipping point in their favor, but I just feel like Trae Young has been so ready for this moment. He's really fun to watch, and it's fun because he hasn't had to even go for 40 or 50 to will them to a win yet. He's been doing it averaging 25 and 10 every game, and it's really fun to watch. They're obviously loaded offensively, and I think a big question mark comes in the offseason for the Hawks as well, as far as do they re-sign Nate McMillan to be their long-term coach, or do they go in a different direction? Because as soon as that change at the head coaching position was made, the direction of this team was where we expected it to be with all these offseason moves. So I think the Hawks take this one in 5 or 6, and I'm excited to see them compete against Philly in the next round.
Yeah, I agree. Dan has been very bullish on Trae Young, and it's not like I haven't, but I think he's exceeded expectations, especially against a Knicks team that was very, they were a good defensive team all year, right? They're kind of rough and tough like the old school Knicks, and Trey has just completely demolished them. But I think Atlanta's front office did a great job in the offseason. They are a modern day team that can shoot the ball. They can space the floor. They have lob catchers. They have a point guard that can shoot and pass. Like, I think they're one of those young teams in the East that are going to be a problem in the years to come. If they get maybe one or two more vets, I think they're a real contender in a year or two. I think this year, I'm eager to see them match up with Philly in the next round because Philly's great defensively and Atlanta is great offensively. So that'll be a good matchup. But yeah, Trae Young is just, I think he gets overshadowed because of Luka and then all the younger point guards, John Morant, all these guys. But man, Trey's for real. 27 and a half and 10 assists a game is in the playoffs is no joke.
Yeah, Trae Young's been very impressive, and he's definitely going to be very good for years to come. Let's go back to the West. The Suns and Lakers, that series has gotten interesting as well. I thought the Lakers were going to pull it out, but Chris Paul has been super impressive. Do you think the Suns can knock out the champs?
It's tough, man. Being from Phoenix, it's been tough to keep all my friends in check as far as I don't think that the Lakers were going to lose to the Suns, but it's sad to me. This series has been very disappointing. It's been very great for all of us as fans to get to witness Devin Booker in the playoffs. I think he's shown that he was more than ready for this moment, and DeAndre Ayton as well. But it's tough for me to really appreciate this series because it seems like one way or the other it's going to be dictated by injuries. And I want to see both these teams play 7 games or decide a best of 7 series fully healthy, Suns fans are going to attribute their losses to Chris Paul not being healthy. So now he's feeling fully healthy. Now Lakers fans are going to be able to, if they lose the series, to be like, oh, well, AD played hurt or was out. We still don't know his status on that. So that's kind of frustrating to me as a fan because I wanted to see this duel of 2 great defensive teams go at it full strength. But I think a lot of people are saying that AD being out loses a lot of offense for the Lakers, and that's definitely true. But I think more than anything, this opens up the floor offensively for Phoenix. They have a lot more space to make mistakes now with less rebounding on the floor and less of an inside presence. Obviously, they still have Drummond, and they're still going to be able to bring Trez off the bench. Hopefully, he gets more minutes again. But, yeah, I think that this almost makes it advantage Suns instead of kind of evening the playing field because they get Chris Paul back and AD's out of the picture.
Yeah, I agree. The series is definitely being dictated by injuries, which is frustrating, but hey, man, the Suns, this was the perfect storm for the Suns in terms of Chris Paul starting to feel a bit more healthy, able to shoot the ball more, but they just had no answer for Anthony Davis. Like, they had no answer. They had no one that can guard him, and then he was gobbling up rebounds. Him on the floor with Drummond and Braun, it shrinks the floor, and a lot of these guys, there's nothing they can do, right? You're putting Jay Crowder on them, you're putting Mikal Bridges, there's no answer for that. But I think, like Dan said, this favors the Suns, and if the Suns get this next win in Phoenix, I'm not going to count Braun out, and I hate that Braun has to carry them, but they're in trouble. They're in trouble.
Yeah, I've been impressed with how good Chris Paul has been when he's healthy. And of course, Devin Booker has been solid. DeAndre Ayton is finally proving to people that he's a great player and all. He was worth the number 1 pick. Let's go. Let's stick with the Lakers. Right now, Montrezl Harrell, you were mentioning him, Dan. He hasn't played a lot. Why do you think he hasn't played as much? Because again, he just won the 6th Man of the Year award last year.
Yeah, man. I think, all hoop fans, I think we've been a little bit confused. I think maybe it has to do with them having more of an advantage with more size and versatility on the floor. Obviously, Trez is a highly skilled guy, but maybe the the Lakers have realized that their advantage on the boards and defensively is having Drummond and another big guy like Gasol out there. But it's hard for me to believe that Trez wouldn't be giving productive minutes out there on both sides of the ball. Whether he's giving up a size advantage or not, he's a dog and he's highly skilled offensively. And I think that he can at least take the same quality shots that Anthony Davis has been getting. And maybe if he gets hot, roll with him. I think maybe their speculation maybe after he knocked Cameron Payne on his ass in game one, maybe coach felt like he was a little unpredictable, but that's obviously speculation from Twitter and all this and that. Honestly, man, I don't know. I hope that with AD hurt or out, that he gets some burn and gets to, I don't know if prove himself, but just kind of show everyone what the Lakers have been missing. Because I think his lack of minutes has been hurting the Lakers more than helping them.
Yeah, I think their lineups with the bigs have been finicky ever since Drummond got there. It threw the rotation off, and I think they're trying to force Davis and Drummond to play together, which it works at times, but I just don't like that spacing with the Lakers. If they get 60, 70 points in the paint, then it doesn't matter. But I don't like the lineup with Drummond and AD and Bron out there. I don't like it for spacing purposes. And I think Montrez and AD would have been a way better backcourt, because then AD can kind of roam a little more in the mid-range and the three-point line, and Trez can really just hunker down in the paint, but AD can guard their five. But I look at Frank Vogel and some of the lineups he puts out there, and I question some of the minutes. I question Kuz's minutes, and I question, Taylor Horton. I don't know. I think it's more on Frank Vogel than anything Trez has done. I think he's trying to balance four big men, and that stuff came out in the media with Marc Gasol feeling like he should be playing more, and then AD's in and out of the lineup. Drummond, they're trying to figure out if Drummond can play with AD, and then Trez kind of got put on the back burner. It's tough, right? You got veterans, and it's a lot of things going on, but I blame Frank Vogel for not being able to, kind of find space for him, because I think they need him. So, but that's my take on that.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird because last year Montrezl Harrell, the sixth man of the year, was so good with the Clippers and then signs with the Lakers, and I feel like, it just hasn't quite gone the same way as they wanted to. All right, so at the end of the day, who do you guys got in the finals and why?
Man, right now on the East, I got Brooklyn. You touched on it earlier. Most talented team in the league. They can explode for 150 any day of the week. It's tough. The playoffs are about matchups, about individual matchups more than anything, and I think no one matches up well enough with them for 7 games to really slow down all three of those guys. And I think at any given time, one or all three of those guys is the best player on the court. And then on the West, it's tough on the West, man. I think from the way it's shaping out right now with AD hurt, I think the conference finals will be Jazz and Jazz and Suns or Blazers. So it's tough because I think the Jazz are the best team, but I'm not sure. Like, we've all kind of been counting them out. We don't see them as a legit contender. I want the Clippers to make it, but I'm not. It's tough to trust them with how inconsistent they've been since getting Kawhi and PG together and that whole squad. I think I'm going to keep doubting them until they continue to prove me wrong, because of the last 2 years I've bet on them and they continue to prove me wrong on that way. So I think it's kind of a toss-up in the West between Suns, Blazers, Jazz, and Clippers. And really the Nuggets could pull out that Blazers series too, but it's tough for me to see the Lakers getting much farther than the second round without AD healthy. So I can't give you a definitive answer on the West right now.
I mean, I want to say Brooklyn, but I'm going to say Milwaukee. I got to say Milwaukee just because I know offense matters and I know nobody can stop them, but I don't know, man. The ball just stalls too much for me. And I know Brooklyn has all the talent, and they are my favorites in the heart, but I want Milwaukee to win. So I'm going to say Milwaukee out East. And then out West, like Dan said, man, it really depends because these injuries mounting up. And then I would say the Clippers, but they have to play the Jazz in the next round. And the Jazz are good, man. They're really good. I would say my favorites are probably, I'll take the Clippers. I'll take the Clippers out West, because I do think that they have more experience than Utah, and I don't think they have individually. They can't guard neither Kawhi or Paul George. I don't care if they got Rudy Gobert back there; it don't matter. They can't guard them. And both of those teams shoot very well, but the Jazz don't have they only have one guy that can create his own offense, really create his own offense. Mike Conley can, but Donovan Mitchell's a star. But on the Clippers, they got two guys that are legit closers in a sense. So I'm gonna say the Clippers out west and Milwaukee out east, and I'm going out on a limb. So.
Yeah, it's really weird this year because the West is so wide open, and I do think if the Lakers can't do it, which I thought they'd at least make the conference finals, but with all these injuries, especially Anthony Davis, it looks like the Suns could win that series, but at the same time, anything could happen there. I still got the Jazz somehow. The Jazz are really good, and I think they're, again, as Dan mentioned, they're very underrated just because I feel like they're really young. So I think at the end of the day, the Nets are going to take it all because, again, they have the most talented roster, and when they're on, they're the best team. So at the moment, I have the Nets and Jazz, but anything could happen. Before we end the interview, and again, thanks for coming on, guys. I love talking the NBA playoffs, especially now. Do you want to talk about your most recent episode on the podcast?
Yeah, man. We've just been while we're gearing up for season 4, we've just been kind of doing some NBA playoff coverage episodes, and just most recently, we talked about these young stars and how they've been performing in their first and second stints in the playoffs, and how we've been surprised by guys like Trae Young and John Morant, and also Luka and Jason Tatum, and how they've performed. We've just been covering the playoffs top to bottom, man. We're doing at least 1 or 2 episodes a week, trying to cover everything and anything that's important, talking about the fan incidents that have been going on. Just a little bit of everything, man. And we just love talking hoops, and we love talking the NBA. So, and we know that we watch every game, so it's just been fun to put more content out.
Yeah, I think Dan, he covered everything I would have said anyway. I'll thank you again for having us on, bro, and I'll just promote my book, A Basketball Mind, out now on Amazon and Kindle, written by me. Check it out. If you like basketball, you're into the modern era, and you're a fan, you'll like the book. And yeah, Dan covered everything else about the podcast.
All right, that's great. Again, thanks for coming on. I'll definitely check that book out, Mike. That's really cool that you're making something, or that you wrote something like that. That's really cool. I'll definitely have to check that out. All right, again, you can get your podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, all that good stuff, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Again, thanks for coming on, guys. It's going to be it's already fun right now, and it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens, especially out west. All right. Thanks for coming on, guys, and pleasure talking to you. Hope to have you on again later.
Sure. Appreciate it.
Of course. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Town Podcast, or the STP Pod for short. If you want to check out more videos of the Sports Town Podcast, click on the left. If you want to subscribe to the channel, click on the right.